Hi, it's Ronald Off the Record, a lawyer with the civil rights group BAM, By Any Means Necessary, analyzing entertainment I enjoy, bringing analysis and heart to the conversation. A content warning first about this video. There will be some graphic discussion of childhood sexual abuse and discussion of trauma. I want to shoot off a short video today because I think it's really important to put one out right now as millions of people react to the first 5 minutes of Season 5 of Stranger Things, which is now out on YouTube. It's appalling, and what's appalling is not the artistic decision by the creators of the show. What's appalling is the abuse and victimization of a 12-year-old boy, the final season's likely main character, Will Byers. He is hunted, injured, tossed around like a sack, and violated by a tentacle that injects down his throat whatever Vecna wants to put down there. I just want to say two things about this and then comment on the broader audience's sudden realization that Will is a badass and a hero. First, this scene has overtones of childhood sexual assault, and if you don't see it, you don't see. And it's important that we recognize and raise awareness about the wide prevalence of sexual assault and the sexual abuse of children. This scene was triggering and upsetting for many, and in the spaces I hang out in online, there's a consensus that these are the definite overtones of this scene. Many comments from people, including from survivors of sexual assault themselves. Comments like, "The blatant overtones and allegory of SA were incredibly hard for me to watch, and I wanted to puke." Yes, that's literally what I thought too. I almost started gagging. The SA imagery is so intense, I'm going to throw up. I'm genuinely so distraught and disturbed. The only hard part for me to watch was the tentacle going into his mouth. As a survivor of SA, that part was a little hard for me to watch if I'm going to be honest. I almost vomited. I was sobbing, dude. They went all out with the SA representation. I actually feel so sick. We've seen grown people in the show getting the tentacle treatment. It's another thing entirely to subject it to a small child, especially in such an in-your-face and long, drawn-out way, complete with sound effects of him choking, struggling to get it out. I'm not saying these topics shouldn't be explored, far from it. In fact, I think it's legitimate and important for these themes to be explored in a horror show, and I hope that Duffer Brothers do them justice. But I think it would be incumbent for Netflix to have a content warning label of sexual assault and childhood abuse for content like this. There needs to be a fair warning for people who, for health reasons, need to shield themselves from such content or at least brace themselves against it. Second, the teaser really excites me as to what direction, story-wise, this season will go in, and I say this as a gay man who strongly identifies with Will Byers. I think it will explore themes of abuse with an unmistakable implication of sexual abuse and tie it with his sexual empowerment arc. It's been clear for a long time to the fandom of the show that Season 5 will center on Will and will uncover the mystery of what happened in Will's time in the Upside Down and what's up with his supernatural connection to it. But there's more. Co-creator Ross Duffer told Variety, quote, "Will really takes center stage again in Season 5. This emotional arc for him is what we feel is going to hopefully tie the whole series together. Will is used to being the young one, the introverted one, the one that's being protected. So part of his journey, it's not just sexuality, it's Will coming into his own as a young man." This show has sided with the bullied and the outcast, and it appears that it will make this gay boy the show's ultimate hero. Now, I thought all this already. I did a video on the likelihood that Will gains powers this season and his empowerment arc. Thumbnail on the screen, link in the description. But I didn't expect that this show will be as bold as these first 5 minutes suggest it will be, in exploring dark themes of child abuse and sexual abuse in tandem with his struggle to express his sexuality. The Byler community, the fandom around the romantic possibility of Mike and Will, which clocked Will being gay many years before the general audience did, also pointed out the strong hints of physical abuse and possibly sexual abuse by Will's dad, Lonnie. Lonnie is a homophobic monster who called Will the F slur and hated him for not liking traditional boy things. In Season 1, when Jonathan went to Lonnie's house to look for Will, Jonathan looked in the trunk of Lonnie's car.
"Really? You want to check out my ass, too?"
Byler's noted Will's state when Hopper and Joyce found him in the library in Season 1 with the tentacle, and Will's profound memory loss of his time in the Upside Down is a classic trauma response. How the tentacle violates him and how the mind flayer violates him both violate his bodily autonomy and make the Upside Down a metaphor for sexual abuse.
I felt it everywhere. Everywhere. want this to be over. It's okay.
Bylers who discussed these themes expected them to remain purely in the background. But these first 5 minutes, with the physical manhandling of Will and the sexual assault-like violation of his body, suggest that the show will continue to explicitly parallel Will's journey to that of a survivor of childhood physical and sexual abuse. Will's actor Noah Schnapp is on record saying that Season 5 will explore and revisit all his trauma from past seasons, including his abuse by his dad Lonnie.
To talk about Will's evolution, it's very interesting getting to play him because every season we're kind of introduced to a new struggle he's dealing with, and it's never a one-tone kind of thing. In Season 1, he's kidnapped to the Upside Down, his life is taken away from him, he's dealing with, an abusive father, and then Season 2, he's back dealing with the trauma from being taken to the Upside Down and these supernatural forces, and then Season 3, we see more of his personal struggles and feeling, like an outcast. He's growing slower than his friends because he's still dealing with this trauma. And then Season 4, we see him now struggling with personal identity issues and feelings that he can't quite capture into words. And then we get to Season 5, and we've introduced all these different struggles through the past seasons. So Season 5 is so gratifying to play because it kind of feels like the culmination of all of these things dropped, coming to a close and tying that knot. And I'm just very excited for you guys to see it.
And I think this particular shot from one of the teaser trailers, I'm guessing it's from a Vecna-imposed nightmare that Will has, similar to what Nancy had in Season 4, could specifically be Will being forced to remember being violated by Vecna. Will be confronting his trauma this season, and his character development over all the seasons of the show shows classic signs of how people respond to horrific trauma. One goal of physical abuse and torture is to brainwash one's victims. For Will, who was abused by his dad and told to not be gay, he constantly hears the voice of the abuser in his head. He has the common victim's reaction of always putting others before himself. Him being possessed in Season 2 was a supernatural exploration of the theme of losing all sense of yourself, of giving control over to your abuser. And his abuse at the hands of Lonnie taught him to suppress his gay feelings. He hates himself and feels like a mistake. When Will gave credit to Elle and gave his painting to Mike, it was part of Will's decision to never act on his gay sexuality. Because the only person he'll ever love is Mike, and he thinks he'll never have him. He's decided he will never be himself, and he will never find love. And Season 5 could very well be the story of taking all the shit that's been thrown at him, all the abuse and torture from the Upside Down and from society and his father, and turn it all around, perhaps expressed through gaining powers, against his abusers. I am a Will Byers happy ending truther, and you should see the 2 videos I'll have up on the screen, link in the description. And I think that the season will be extremely cathartic, not only for LGBT people who deal with homophobia, but survivors of childhood abuse and sexual abuse, where a key point of the season will be Will finally having vengeance against Vecna for everything he's done to him. The Duffer Brothers take inspiration from 70s and 80s teen slasher horror flicks. Season 1 took inspiration from those movies than the later seasons, and the new teaser suggests that they will go back to their roots. And the Duffers like to play off of tropes, and it would be great if they do the trope of the final girl. The person we identify with, the person who gets hunted by the murderer, who we have just seen horribly mutilate and murder other women. And all that disgusting horror we've been forced to experience, we get the cathartic experience of seeing the final girl fight back and win. I'm thinking, and I'm hoping, we're going to see the final girl trope with Will Byers. And not only that, they're isolated and alone. It's extremely personal. And for Will Byers, he needs to be confronted with his greatest trauma and kill it. Now I want to address the sudden realization by a part of the fandom that Will Byers is a hero. Will has always been a hero, one of its bravest heroes, and homophobia and toxic ideas of masculinity and what a hero supposedly is have prevented people from seeing it. I'm glad that many people see it now, but perhaps for the wrong reasons. And I want to point out the notion that has prevailed up to this point that Will Byers is supposedly a weak character. I want to read this excellent post by Bye Bye Lurk, and you should follow their blog on Tumblr. Link in the description. This was written in response to the latest first 5 minutes of Season 5. They write, Will Byers has always been strong, by the way. He was strong when he gave up his toy truck to a girl he didn't know, knowing he couldn't afford a new one, just because he didn't want her to be sad. He was strong when he softly told Dart he wouldn't hurt him, even after his deeply traumatizing encounter with a Demogorgon. He was strong when he gave the credit for his painting to Elle, believing that saving her relationship with Mike was the key to saving Hawkins. He was strong when he encouraged Mike to tell Elle he loves her, knowing that it was the last thing he wanted to hear himself, just because he wanted to save the town that hates him. Yes, he had remarkable survival skills at 12 years old, but his strength extends beyond his ability to find shelter, shoot a gun, outrun a Demogorgon, or jump from a tree. The idea that Will was weak without these 5 minutes is a testament to how our society looks down on any display of softness from men. Will Byers is strong because he has every reason to be evil, and he chooses not to be. Why is it that when Billy or Henry endure physical abuse and become the abuser, they have so many people jumping to their defense? But when Will chooses to remain gentle and kind and self-sacrificial in spite of the abuse he has endured, he's suddenly useless and the weak link of the group? There is strength in breaking the cycle. Get used to it, because breaking the cycle will save the day. The psychological reaction that victims of abuse often have, that I cited before, can also be sources of tremendous strength that far exceed that of people who don't endure abuse. And this includes not only abuse by family members, but by society as well. I'll now read part of an older post of mine where I responded to a post on the Stranger Things subreddit where someone said, "Does anyone else think Will became less interesting and likable in season 4?" I wrote, "Well, they've written him to be a closeted gay kid in a small town in the 80s. Struggling with his sexuality and coming out is going to be kind of his everything. I went through it, the 80s part at least. And so no, he's not going to be as outgoing or, quote, interesting and likable, end quote, as a Steve Harrington or a Dustin." And I point out that a current top post on the subreddit was people going gaga over Steve Harrington / Joe Keery in this picture. Instead, Will is incredibly awkward, reserved, closed in, and does not project confidence and charisma that make people easily like him, because he hates and loathes and doubts himself. He has to hide being gay. So every movement, every inflection, every look, every expression of himself threatens his safety and well-being. He has been awkward and introverted and shy, but he has also been sensitive, caring, and empathetic. He was one of the more selfless characters this season. These qualities, at least the way he expresses them, don't win conventional popularity contests. Some people find that bland, and I find them to be admirable. Will is a hero, and heroes can be quiet gay boys too. Anyway, I'll link to this post in the description if you want to read the full post. Homophobia and traditional ideas of what a hero is and of masculinity are what has prevented people from seeing Will Byers as a hero. And I would also argue that a character many people would acknowledge as a hero, the Mike Wheeler of seasons 1 and 2, the fact that many people see him as a hero is part of why many people can't imagine him being gay. Now, that's food for thought, and maybe something to discuss another time. Hopefully season 5 will blow both notions out of the water. I hope you enjoyed this relatively short video. I wanted to chime in the discussion and bring these issues to light. Like and subscribe. Also support my Patreon, where there's exclusive content, including opportunities to live chat with me. I'm also going to be posting edits of my reactions to each episode of Season 5, along with my analyses of them. There'll be shorter versions compared to my full reactions on my Patreon, which you'll also get access to earlier than my public edits. That's it. I have been Ronald off the record. I'll see you next time.